I'd been with her for almost 6 years when I finally saw the cracks start to show. At first, I didn't want to see them because I loved her too much. We built a life, good jobs, a nice apartment, plans for the future. But late one night, everything changed. I was sitting on the couch flipping through my phone when I saw her message notification pop up. The name made my stomach tighten. Jason, my best friend. I froze. My fingers hovered over the screen, hesitant, then I peeked. The message was simple. Can't wait to see you tonight. I scrolled up, heart pounding. They'd been messaging all week, secret plans, jokes, emojis that felt like tiny punches in my gut. I could feel the heat rising in my face, my palms slick with sweat. I wanted to scream, but I just sat there, staring at the screen, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. That was the first red flag I missed. I kept telling myself it was nothing, just old friends catching up. But I knew better. I saw the way her eyes darted when I came home late, the little lies she'd spin to cover up. Reasons she'd be busy. Still, I loved her. I convinced myself that maybe I was overreacting. Then came the night I found her hiding in the closet, trying to hide her phone from me. Her hand was trembling and her face was pale. "What are you doing?" I asked sharply, my voice low but tense. She hesitated, then said, "Nothing, just cleaning," even as her eyes flicked away nervously. That moment, something sank deep. I didn't want to believe it, but the way she was acting, it was like she was caught in a lie already. I snatched her phone. Her reaction was instant, eyes wide, breath hitching. I saw the message preview from Jason again, that little snippet that confirmed what I already suspected. They'd been sneaking around for months. Her lie about being busy with work was just a cover-up. I felt a cold rush of fury. How long had this been going on? Was it before the wedding? During? I clenched my fists and handed her phone back, voice trembling. "Who is Jason to you?" Her answer was a whisper, almost inaudible. "He's just a friend." Lie, more lies, because I knew deep down that it wasn't just friendship. It was something else, something she'd been hiding and I'd been blind to it. And the worst part, it wasn't just that they'd been lying, it was that she'd been lying about her pregnancy too. I found out later she'd been claiming she was pregnant, telling everyone she was due next month. But I had a sinking feeling that wasn't true either. It's funny how your mind works in moments like this. The world around me felt like it was tilting, the walls closing in. That night I sat on the couch, staring at her, feeling like I'd been sucker punched. My stomach was tight, like I'd swallowed a stone. I'd never felt such a mix of betrayal and rage before. The next morning I started digging. I didn't want to just confront her blindly. I needed proof, something concrete. I remembered her saying she'd been feeling off lately, tired and moody. I started by checking her messages again, then I noticed her phone was always with her, even when she went to the bathroom. I saw the way she kept it face down, like it was a shield. I waited until she was out grocery shopping, then I took her phone and did a little digging. That's when I found it, the photos. On her cloud drive, hidden in a folder labeled maternity, were pictures of her, clearly not pregnant. Just her, lying in bed, her belly flat, her face looking tired but not pregnant. There were also pictures of her with Jason, smiling, close, too intimate for friends. When she came home, I was waiting, her phone in my hand. I threw her phone on the table and looked her straight in the eye. "You lied about the pregnancy, didn't you?" She froze. Her eyes darted, then welled with tears. "It's not what you think. I didn't mean for you to find out like this." That's when I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. The building blocks of my trust had crumbled beneath my feet. I knew I had to plan everything carefully if I was going to confront her, and if I ever wanted to have any chance of reclaiming my dignity. Somewhere inside, I'd already decided I wouldn't be the fool who gets played. But first, I needed to see how far she'd go. Was she planning to keep the lies going, or was she expecting me to forgive her? That's when I started to think about my next move. I'd always been cautious about revenge, but now I felt a strange sense of clarity. She crossed a line and I wasn't going to forget it. Not anytime soon. The morning after I found out the truth, I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. My mind was racing, trying to process everything. The betrayal, the lies, the fact that she'd been sneaking behind my back with Jason, all of it felt like a punch to the gut that left me breathless. I knew I couldn't just let this go. I had to plan my next move, and it had to be precise. I needed to make her understand that I wasn't some fool to be played. I made coffee, forcing myself to breathe. The smell of burnt toast from her forgetfulness irritated me even more. I sat at the table, eyes fixed on her phone, which she'd left lying there after her grocery run. I knew she'd be back soon, so I had to work fast. I opened her cloud drive again, navigating through the files she'd thought were hidden well. That's when I saw the folder labeled Mama's Surprise, which I'd never seen before. Curiosity mixed with a growing sense of anger made my fingers tremble as I clicked inside. The folder was full of photos, more than I expected. But what stopped me cold was a picture of her in our bed, lying on her back, her face flushed, holding her stomach as if she was pregnant. But I knew her body, she wasn't pregnant. The belly was flat actually, and her clothes were loose, hiding nothing. I zoomed in, and the date stamp revealed it was taken a week ago. She'd been lying to everyone about her pregnancy for months. Waiting until it was convenient, I guessed. My stomach twisted, and I clenched my fists so tightly my nails dug into my palms. My jaw tightened. All those nights I spent worrying about her, questioning her mood swings, her tired eyes. I'd been blind. She'd been lying right under my nose, hiding her affair and her so-called pregnancy. The physical evidence was undeniable now. I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my ears, my vision blurring at the edges. When she walked through the door, her face brightening when she saw me sitting there, I was already boiling. The look she gave me was guilt mixed with fear. She knew I'd found her out. I looked up sharply, holding her phone in my hand. "How long has this been going on?" She froze, her eyes darting away. I didn't mean for you to find out like this," she whispered, voice trembling. I slammed the table, making her jump. "How long? Tell me, damn it." Her voice cracked as she tried to lie again. "It's not what you think, it's just. I wasn't planning to tell you yet." "Oh, you were, because I have proof. The pictures, your lies about the pregnancy. How long have you been lying to me about that?" She broke down then, tears streaming down her face. "It's not real. The pregnancy was a lie. I was scared of losing you. Jason, we just got carried away. I never meant to hurt you." Her words were like nails in my chest. I felt a wave of disgust mixing with the deep-seated anger. I couldn't believe I'd been so stupid, so trusting. I had to do something, but I couldn't just storm out or yell. I needed a plan. I needed to make her regret this, and I needed to do it in a way that hit her where it hurt, without leaving a trail that could backfire. "I want you out of the house," I said coldly, voice steady but tense. "Tonight, pack your things. Don't contact me again until I say so." She looked at me in shock. "Please, just listen." "No," I cut her off. "I've heard enough. You lied about everything, and I don't know if I can trust you anymore. You've broken whatever little trust we had left." As she started to cry harder, I felt the familiar burn of betrayal. I had no idea how I was going to move forward, but I knew this was only the beginning. The evidence was clear now, and I was ready to execute a plan that would make her regret ever crossing me. She thought she could keep hiding, keep lying. But I'd made up my mind. I was going to make her pay for all of this. The rest of the day, I stayed silent, planning my next steps. I knew I couldn't confront her again without something more concrete. I needed leverage, something she wouldn't expect, something that would leave her no way to spin her way out of it. And I knew, deep down, I was going to make her feel the full weight of what she'd done. The question was, how far was I willing to go? That's when I started crafting my revenge, step by step, because she'd pushed me into a corner and I had no intention of backing down. I just had to figure out exactly how to make her understand that this wasn't going to end with her walking away unscathed. That evening, I went out to clear my head, but my mind was still spinning. I sat on a park bench under the dim glow of a street lamp, feeling the cold air sting my face. The whole situation was like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. I knew I had to act, but I wasn't going to do something reckless. No, I needed a plan, something surgical, precise. I wanted her to understand the depth of the betrayal without just losing my temper and throwing everything away. By the time I got back home, I'd already mapped out my next move. I knew she'd try to stay in the house, maybe plead or spin some story to make me doubt myself. But I was done doubting. I'd seen enough. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at her empty chair, and started listing the facts I had: physical evidence, her lies, her secret messages. I'd also discovered something else. Her phone was still full of messages from Jason. I downloaded everything, saving it in a hidden folder. I waited until she was asleep before I started my work. I decided to plant some evidence, just enough to make her understand I was onto her, without giving away I knew every detail. I went through her messages, copying some of the most incriminating exchanges, and then I sent them to her email address. I knew she'd check her email tomorrow morning, and I wanted her to see it then. I wanted her to wake up to the fact that her lies had been exposed, that I wasn't just some fool she could manipulate anymore. I also made a few copies of the photos I'd found. I didn't want her to destroy them or hide them. I kept one set securely on my own device, and I made sure she'd find the other when she checked her email. I knew I was risking a lot, getting caught, creating a bigger mess, but I didn't care. She'd pushed me to the edge, and I was ready to make her feel the consequences. Before I went to bed, I left a note on her pillow. "We need to talk. Come to the living room at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Don't try to avoid it." I didn't add much, just enough to make her uneasy. I wanted her nervous, questioning, knowing I was finally in control. The next morning she came into the room, eyes puffy, still in her pajamas. The moment she saw the note, her face drained of color. She looked at me, hesitant. "What's this?" "Just a little chat," I said, voice cold but steady. "You know what I found, and I think it's only fair you explain yourself." Her hands shook as she sat down across from me. I could see her trying to compose herself, but her eyes darted to her phone and then away. I handed her a printed copy of the emails. I'd sent her screenshots of her conversations with Jason, the lies about the pregnancy, everything. Her face went pale. This isn't what it looks like," she stammered. "Oh, I think it's exactly what it looks like," I replied. "You've been lying to me for months, about your pregnancy, about Jason, about everything. Do you want to tell me why you did this?" She looked down, tears welling again. "I was scared. I didn't want you to hate me. I thought if I told you about Jason, you'd leave. I didn't want that, and the pregnancy, I was trying to keep things normal." I felt the anger bubble up again, but I kept my voice level. "Normal? You think lying about being pregnant and sneaking around with my best friend is normal? You're unbelievable." She looked like she was about to break apart. "Please, just listen." "No," I cut her off. "I've heard enough. You lied, you cheated, and you betrayed me in ways I can't even count right now. You're out of this house tonight. I want you gone." She burst into tears, begging, pleading, "Don't do this, please, I love you." That was the moment I realized I wasn't going to be swayed by tears or apologies. I'd reached my limit. Her lies had shattered everything, and I wasn't going to keep pretending she was innocent anymore. I grabbed her keys, handed her a bag, and told her to leave. I didn't care where she went, I just wanted her gone. As she packed, I watched her, feeling a strange mix of relief and rage. The house was finally mine again, but it didn't feel like a victory. Not yet. I knew I'd have to face the fallout, deal with the mess she'd left behind. But I also knew this wasn't over, not even close. I stood at the door, watching her drive off, the weight of betrayal sinking in deeper. I felt a strange calm settle over me. This was the beginning of my revenge, and I was going to make sure she paid in full. I'd show her she couldn't lie and cheat without consequences, and I'd make her regret ever crossing that line. Because sometimes you just have to take control when everything's falling apart. And right now, I was in charge. The days that followed were like walking through a fog, part clarity, part chaos. I'd handed her the keys, told her to leave, and watched her drive off into the unknown. It was over, or at least that's what I told myself. But deep down, I knew the real battle was just beginning. Her lies had poisoned everything, and I wasn't about to let her forget it. I had to tighten my grip on the situation, make her feel the full weight of her betrayal, without crossing a line that would make me lose my own footing. I stayed silent most of the day, watching her empty house from a distance, feeling the hollow ache in my chest. I knew she'd try to spin her story to her friends, to family. She was good at manipulation, but this time I wanted to be one step ahead. I needed her to realize this wasn't just about losing me. It was about her losing everything she tried to hide. Her reputation, her lies, her false promises. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, and unmasked. That evening, I started executing phase 2 of my plan. I couldn't just confront her and hope she'd own up. I had to make her regret what she'd done, even if it meant playing dirty. I reached out to a few friends I trusted, people who knew her, and handed them copies of the evidence I'd collected, screenshots, photos, everything. I told them to spread it around quietly, discreetly. No need for gossip, but enough to make her realize her lies were no longer safe. Meanwhile, I set up a fake email account under a different name. I crafted a message that looked like it was from her pregnancy doctor, a doctor I created online. The email said that her tests were inconclusive, that they couldn't confirm pregnancy, and that her due date was impossible given her actual health. I wanted her to wake up and see that her biggest lie was about to be exposed, and that her entire story was crumbling. The next morning I waited. Sure enough, her phone buzzed early. She looked at it, her face blanching, then slowly reading the message. Her hands trembled as she stared at the screen, the realization hitting her like a punch to the gut. That's when I knew I'd struck a nerve. She tried to call, then texted back, frantic, asking who had sent it. I didn't reply. Instead, I sent her a second email, this one with a fake lab report claiming her pregnancy was not viable, a clear lie but enough to shake her. Watching her panic, I felt a strange satisfaction. The woman who had once been my everything was now tumbling, exposed, vulnerable. Her lies had come back to haunt her, and I wasn't done yet. I had one more move, something that would hit her even harder. I decided to confront her face to face, but on my terms. I scheduled a meeting, not to reconcile, but to really make her see the damage she'd caused. I told her I wanted to talk, and she showed up looking helpless, clutching her purse like a shield. I met her at a neutral spot, a small cafe near the city center. When she sat down, I looked her straight in the eyes. "You've been lying for months," I started. "About the pregnancy, about Jason, about everything. And I've got proof that you've been sneaking around, lying to everyone. Do you want to tell me why?" She looked down, biting her lip. "I was scared. Of losing everything, of losing you. I thought I could fix it, make it right, by lying, by cheating." I snapped. "That's your solution." She shook her head, tears pooling. "I didn't mean for it to get this far, it just happened. Jason, the pregnancy, none of it was supposed to go this way. I thought I could handle it, but I was wrong." I felt my jaw tight. "You think you can just say sorry and everything's fine? You lied about the pregnancy for months. You let me believe I was going to be a father. Do you even realize how much damage you've done?" She sobbed then, face flushed, eyes pleading. "Please, I love you, I swear I do." I looked away, feeling anger and frustration boil inside me. "Love, you think lying, sneaking around, and deceiving me for so long is love? You've broken my trust beyond repair. You're not coming back, not yet, not until I see real consequences." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "This is the key to the house, your key, your belongings. I want you to leave permanently. And don't contact me again until I say so. You've burned that bridge." She looked at me stunned, tears streaming down her face. "What are you going to do now?" I took a breath, feeling the weight lift slightly. "I'm going to start rebuilding on my own terms. But I want you to remember this: actions have consequences. You can't lie and cheat your way out of it. And I'll make sure everyone knows what you've done." She left the cafe crying, and I sat there for a moment, feeling that strange sense of clarity settle in. I'd taken back control, and even though it hurt like hell, I knew I was doing the right thing. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming myself from the ruins she'd left behind. As I walked away that day, I knew one thing for sure: she'd never be able to hide her lies again. And I'd never let her forget what she'd done. The fallout from that confrontation was immediate and brutal. I could feel the weight of her departure pressing down on me, but oddly, I felt a strange sense of relief. The house was quiet now, almost too quiet, and I had almost forgotten how suffocating her lies had been. Still, the damage was done, and I knew I needed to cement my victory, not just to hurt her, but to finally close this chapter completely. In the following days, I kept my distance, but I made sure her lies stayed in the spotlight. I told a few trusted friends about what I'd uncovered, giving them just enough to understand the full scope of her betrayal. I wanted her to feel the sting of exposure, the way her carefully crafted story was crumbling apart. People started to notice her absence, questions arose, and she was quickly losing her standing in the small circle she'd once controlled. Meanwhile, I took steps to reclaim my peace. I canceled her access to our shared bank accounts and changed all the passwords. Her name was wiped off everything: social media, email, even the shared subscriptions. I wanted to make sure she couldn't meddle or manipulate from afar. The house was mine again, and I was starting to breathe better. The nausea of betrayal was slowly easing, replaced by a cold, calculated resolve. But I knew I wasn't done. Revenge isn't just about hurting someone once. It's about making them feel the consequences of their actions over and over. So I devised a plan, something subtle but effective. I had to make her realize that her lies had come back to bite her and that I had won this round. It wasn't about petty revenge. It was about her understanding she'd lost control. I reached out to a private investigator I knew just to get a clearer picture of her new life, who she was talking to, her routines, her new lies. Nothing invasive, just enough to give me leverage if I needed it. I learned she'd been trying to spin her story as some tragic mistake, a moment of weakness, but I wasn't buying it anymore. The truth was out and I had proof to back it up. Then I started planting little reminders, small, subtle signs that she couldn't erase. A book I knew she'd wanted to read, left on her old side of the closet with a note inside: "Lies don't stay hidden forever." A strange phone call she'd received from someone I didn't recognize. Nothing overt, just enough to unsettle her and reinforce that her secrets weren't safe anymore. One day, I went a step further. I created a fake social media account, anonymous of course, and started following her new acquaintances. I wanted her to feel watched, to see that I was still in control even from a distance. I posted a few cryptic comments, things that only she would understand, just enough to make her uneasy. She'd start wondering if I was still watching, still lurking. That's exactly what I wanted. At the same time, I kept my own life moving forward. I got a new job, started hanging out with friends, and focused on myself. It was a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness, but I knew I had to keep my head clear. I'd won this round, but the war wasn't over. Not yet. I had to ensure she felt the sting of her actions every day, reminding her that betrayal always has a price. One night I was lying in bed, thinking about everything: the lies, the betrayal, the house, the plan. I felt a cool sense of victory, but also a strange loneliness. I had lost a partner I once thought I knew. But I also realized something important: I was stronger without her. I had taken control and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me again. So I made one final move. I drafted a formal letter, sealed it, and left it on her old doorstep. It was a simple message, no threats, just a statement of fact. "You lied, you cheated, and now you've lost everything that mattered. Don't come back. Move on or keep running from the truth. It's your choice." I knew she'd see it eventually, and I wanted her to remember, every time she looked at that house, that she'd been caught, exposed, and defeated. As I walked away from her past, I felt a strange mixture of relief and determination. She'd pushed me to the edge, but I'd come out on top. I'd taken everything she tried to hide and made it impossible for her to ever regain her footing. I understood now that sometimes the best revenge isn't just the hurt you inflict. It's the quiet, unwavering strength to walk away and leave her with nothing but her own lies. Weeks passed, and I finally started to feel like I was regaining some sense of normalcy. The house was quiet, but for once it felt like my space again, my sanctuary. Every night I'd sit on the couch, staring at the fire flickering, and think about what I'd done. I was proud of every action, but I knew I'd taken back control. She had tried to destroy us with her lies, and I'd fought to rebuild what she nearly shattered. One afternoon, I went into the house for the first time since she left. Everything was exactly as I'd left it, yet it felt different. The air didn't carry her scent anymore, and the walls weren't filled with her lies. I looked around and wondered how I'd let her manipulate me for so long. The betrayal still stung, but I could finally breathe without that weight pressing down. I went to the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and ran my fingers over the sheets. I remembered the nights we'd spent there, her laughter, her touch, the promises she'd broken. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. This was my new beginning. I had to remind myself that I was better without her. I'd faced the worst and I'd survived. That evening I took the keys I'd given her, the ones to the house, and dropped them into an envelope. I sealed it tight, then walked outside towards the mailbox. My hand trembled slightly, but I forced myself to do it. I dropped the envelope in, watching it settle at the bottom. That was the final act. It symbolized closing the door on her lies and me reclaiming my life. As I turned to walk away, I felt a strange sense of peace. I'd been betrayed, manipulated, and hurt deeply, but I'd also found a new strength. I realized that revenge wasn't about hurting her anymore. It was about freeing myself from her shadow and moving forward without her. Looking back, I know I made the right choice. She may have taken my trust, but she didn't take my dignity. I learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away, unbroken, with your head held high. And that's exactly what I did.